Welcome back to the Universal Flooring Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and today we're diving into the human side of the concrete and steel world. Please welcome Allie Grande, the Director of Project Development at Bird Construction, Leslie Fowler, the co-founder of Align Cost Management, and Carly Guilcher, the Director of Operations from LAURIN. All three of these women share a unique bond through the Calgary Construction Association Board of Directors. But more importantly, they've forged a deep friendship in an industry that is rapidly evolving. Today, we are talking about the accidental path to construction, why the industry is finally moving away from the yelling and screaming culture of the past, and how being a recovering architect or a recovering engineer gives you a unique edge in this industry. Let's get into it. Allie, Leslie, Carly, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the Universal Flooring Podcast. To start with, do you mind taking a minute to introduce yourselves and who you are and where you work and what you do and things like that? Allie, let's start with you.
Did you make your notes?
Did you make notes? No. I'm Allie Grande. I am Director in Project Development for Bird Construction, mostly working on the front end of construction projects. I have a lot of deep expertise in collaborative delivery models, and I am a recovering architect because I worked as a partner in architecture for many years.
I'm Leslie Fowler. I am a co-founder of Align Cost and Project Management, a boutique advisory firm that offers cost consulting and owner's rep project management for construction projects. I am a professional quantity surveyor, and prior to starting Align in 2023, I worked for a few different global consulting firms and general contractor.
I am Carly Guilcher. I work for a general contractor called LAURIN, mid-sized out of Ontario. They've been around for about 40 years, but we're fairly new to Calgary, so that's been a lot of fun building a team and finding some new work using my experience for the last 25-ish years in the general contracting world in Calgary. Majority of my career has been in GCing, but I'm also a recovering engineer. I like that term. I'm going to borrow it.
Obviously, all three of you have got lots of experience inside the construction industry, and the four of us know each other. At least I know the three of you from our time spent together on the Calgary Construction Association Board of Directors. But I think what's so interesting about the three of you is that you're good friends as well, right? And so I wanted to understand that a little bit more. And is that just a professional friendship, or is it blend into the personal side of things too? And how did that come to be? Not everybody.
I think that
I'll go. I have a great story about Leslie. Well, I have a great story about Alex too. This might not be appropriate on my behalf.
but I think it's worth noting that our friendship started when we were on the board together.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I wasn't friends with either of them before that. So
Sorry, which board was that?
the Calgary Construction Association board, we met there, and I think over the course of the first few events or whatever, and I don't know how long ago that was, probably 4 years ago,
Wow.
maybe
Yeah.
5.
I think it was
Oh,
five.
wow.
But yeah, it facilitated the friendship, and I think it's, in my opinion, it's both professional and personal. We, I mean, I don't know if it's nature of being a woman, but we overshare and we know a lot about each other, and we know a lot about what each other's going through in our careers and our businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And our friendship started earlier with admiration. As Leslie said, she was a quantity surveyor, a cost consultant, and that was her role when I was on a project with her years ago. And she came up on screen during COVID and she just called me out on something that I was trying to pretend I knew what I was talking about. And I instantly crept her, and who is a smart, wicked woman? And yeah, had a lot of respect and admiration for her. And then luckily, coincidentally, a month or two later, we're on the board together. So
Cool.
yeah, I would say lots of shared values and shared passion, career-wise and personal life-wise. They've just merged together.
You agree with all that?
I would agree.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And what about friendship in construction in particular, do you think is unique or important to have somebody who you can phone or lean on or sort of run something past?
I mean, I think it's incredibly important. I think that's probably the number one piece of advice that I give young women is to, and it's the number one piece of advice I got is that in an industry that, can be rather male dominated, to really just focus on the connections that are easy. And for me, that was always with connecting with women. And, I would say a ton of my friends work in this industry, and they're really good, strong friendships that I've had for years, in some cases, decades, right? All three of us have gone through a lot of career transitions in the last kind of 3 to 5 years, and, more recent than that. And I think that that's really helpful to, have people that not only understand you personally and what your goals might be, personally, but also can help you navigate, I think, professional transitions in a way that is aligned with your values, but also, positioned yourself for growth.
I think the construction industry, especially in Calgary, and specifically to more mid-size organizations, everybody wants to make a connection, to do an introduction, to make a referral. And I think being on the Calgary Construction Association board has developed a lot of friendships, maybe not as close as these ones, but the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody that works for a certain trade or in insurance or something like that, and know that you're going to have a friend that can maybe help you fill a gap on something you don't know. But there is definitely, a lot of relationships and networking, and who do you know? Who can you help out? And there is actually a willingness to want to support other organizations that maybe not be people that are going to give you a contract, but they might refer you for a client that asks them, do you know a cost consultant? Do you know a GC? Do you know an architect? And having those relationships really helps grow your business.
Do you think that openness is unique to Calgary or unique to construction, or?
I would say it is definitely more prevalent in Calgary. I started my career in Vancouver, and I found it very hard to make friends and connections outside of the office. From Calgary, from my experiences, most people aren't from here originally. So everybody's coming to start and grow something new on their own. I think people can say, hey, I remember when I was in that situation. I remember when I was the new person and got invited to a barbecue, or I didn't know an architect, but I knew the structural engineer, and they were able to make an intro. I've been here for 15 years, but have worked elsewhere. And I do find it's a lot closer here than it is other places.
Yeah, I would agree. We're also in the same "we want everyone to win" camp. Like Allie and I both work,
Yeah.
we're considered to be competitors, yet we have no qualms about asking each other for advice or what type of contract would you suggest for this job. So there's a lot of trust and balance in our relationships, and we want all of us to win. That helps too.
You mentioned that you're a recovering engineer. Engineering can go a lot of directions. Was construction always the plan?
No, it wasn't. It was environmental engineering. And then I wasn't the smart kid in the co-op program. So I got stuck with the last choice for summer jobs, which happened to be PCL construction in Winnipeg. And it was the best short straw I've ever had. I absolutely loved it. And then felt a sort of pressure or compelled to go into a design world when I graduated, and hated it because I knew the other side. So I quickly navigated back to construction.
Leslie, construction always the plan?
No,
No.
no, I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist, like everybody did in grade 11 and 12. And I went to college for one semester, took biology, sociology, and math. And I was paying my own tuition. So after a semester, I was like, what the am I going to do with this? What am I going to do? Where am I going to get a job? So I took a pause, ended up painting houses and commercial painting for a couple of years. And then everybody that went to BCIT, British Columbia Institute of Technology, same as SAIT here, got jobs. So I was like, I got to find a program there. Did a nursing walkthrough, and it's like, nope, can't do that. And then I came across a architecture and building engineering program, and a consultancy firm out of Vancouver came and did a presentation in our second year about quantity surveying. And I thought that sounded pretty interesting. So I went and worked there, and here we are. And I don't think I'd want to go any other industry. I think it's been a great career.
Allie, you're an architect by training.
Yes. So, I mean, that's a very meandering path that would probably take the full hour to go. Because my background, like my undergrad, was in poetry and sculpture. So Allie had to do something else after, because that was not employable.
There wasn't jobs. Yeah.
Weren't a lot of jobs. So I ended up just kind of by accident, I just applied to architecture school, and I thought, that'll be easy, drawing, art history stuff, that'll be fine. So did that, did my master's in architecture, and then worked for an architecture firm, then went to GC, and then came back to the architecture firm as a partner, and then did an MBA in finance to try and, move away from architecture. So so a bit of a different path. So it was not expected.
So 3 for 3. before, if you include me, because I didn't necessarily set out to be in construction, construction was not the first plan sort of out of the gate, which I think if you talk to people in construction, that's often the case. And so I'm curious now, looking at success that you've had, you choose it again. You said that, but how is it compare as a career to maybe the paths not taken? Is it different than the careers that maybe friends of yours have in other industries? How is it being in construction?
We've all sort of dipped our toe in a different industry, thinking that we needed a change. And I've done that recently, not completely different, but different enough from a general contractor standpoint. And I missed the challenge and I missed the grit and I missed the work hard, play hard attitude that people have in the construction industry. And I think we all have that mindset. We win together and we lose together. It's challenging as heck, but it's also rewarding. I think there's a human instinct to need to be challenged, and this industry sure doesn't fall short on that. I think we all have very high stress, high pressure projects and jobs, but I think that's what keeps us here, honestly, as much as we're suckers for punishment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that sometimes you go, oh, maybe I should have just cut hair because then I have a appointment and I'm done at 4:30 and nobody's going to bother me. I know I would probably be very bored. I like to learn, and I think construction definitely teaches you something new every single day, even if it's not to do with construction. It can be a different building type and what do they actually do in that building. I'm working on a museum project and I'm learning a ton about what goes into creating a museum and what goes into the content for the museum and all of that. I think construction definitely provides an ability to fill a need if you're definitely somebody that wants to learn more, do something different every day. Construction will give you that.
Just think the depth of careers within construction, I think, is one of the biggest misconceptions. I think it's so much more than, either being on the tools on site or managing projects, right? There's a whole front end, and then, the larger the company, the more corporate functions it also has. Like, I mean, Bird is just a huge ship, right? And we have a lot of different kind of ways to maneuver and find opportunity, and especially opportunity, I think, to learn within the organization because it's just so big, right? The industry is so big.
I think what you said about the depth of career opportunity in construction is
Yeah.
totally misrepresented. When I worked in a GC, they were rolling out this project coordinator handbook to really let the new coordinators that are generally coming from engineering school know that the progression isn't coordinator, project manager. There's estimating, scheduling, risk, quality control, all of these things. And I think that when you talk to people coming out of some of these school programs, that is generally the path is PCPM. SPM director, right? And it would be interesting to know the stat on for every PM in an organization or in on a project, how many other jobs are contributing to the success of that as well.
So I'm curious if you were talking to a young person, a young woman in particular, who was maybe thinking about a career in construction and not necessarily understanding the depth and the breadth of the opportunity and the different roles within it, what would you say? How would you communicate to them? I presumably you would try to convince them to follow into construction, but how would you make that sales pitch, or what would you tell them is the opportunity?
I have a conversation almost identical to that. My stepdaughter phoned and she's in her first year of management and she texted, and they don't phone when you're 17, but she texted and said, "What do you do?" And so I told her and she said, "That sounds exactly what I want to do, but I'm not an engineer." I said, "You don't have to be. If you like to organize and label folders, you can take that route of engineering and be a project manager. And if you get fulfillment out of building something and have a lot of fulfillment from that, you can go on a different route within construction. There's so many paths to take depending on what your interests are, and I think an industry for anybody really. But for a young female, if you like organizing and you like being part of something that's different every day, and yeah, it's just a very very exciting opportunity for women in construction.
I've noticed that our clients are changing. Almost all of our clients tend to be women. Leadership and organizations that need to build something are feeling that trust and that attraction to being able to have somebody maybe more aligned with how they operate as their representatives or their builders or their architects. Maybe it's communication style, maybe it's a level of trust and sorry, but mansplaining's not going to be there. Just that seems to be what we're seeing. Most of our clients are women.
I would agree with that. And I think, one of the things I've been talking about for years is just how much more is being expected from individuals that are, working with clients in the building industry. I heard it called performance skills instead of soft skills, which I actually really like. Really partnering with clients and trying to work with clients to be a solution provider as opposed to a service provider. It's a totally different approach to what we had, even 10 years ago. And in all facets of the building industry, whether in the front end as a designer, more is being asked of you to kind of understand the business aspects of it and in terms of how that asset is going to support operations or business functions. That's where the real opportunity is.
That I love that definition of if you like problem solving. And I think that's what drew me to construction, and that's why I really enjoyed math. You've got this pile of unorganized things and you have to make sense out of it and to help a client. Yeah, if you enjoy doing that and you enjoy challenging problem solving, it's the perfect industry.
Yeah.
Lots of problems to solve.
What about the culture? I mean, historically, construction's got a culture of yelling and screaming and very aggressive and not friendly to women necessarily. You mentioned the fact that the clients, that's shifting, but what about the culture itself? Is that changing? Have you seen that change in your time in the industry? Is there more change that's needed? How are we doing?
Our generation age group has the higher percentage of women in leadership. I never have had a female boss in 20 plus years. I've always reported to men. Sometimes a misunderstanding of working moms when you have a male manager. I've had roles where I've been at the same level as 12 men. I'm the only one with a child, and I'm the only one with two working parents. But I think that now, 15 years ago, 13 years ago, that's really evolved since then. The two working parent become the norm now. And I don't mean it critically, but it's that mindset of the responsibility of pick up, drop off, all of that stuff. So that I've definitely seen evolve. That said, there is still some groups, cultures, organizations where there's the trips and the hockey games and that kind of stuff. It still exists, but I think we've been pretty adamant about not caring and doing our own shit. And I think maybe after finding these two, now we know why they do it. They work together, they enjoy each other. So why not go out to a hockey game or on a trip together? I mean, maybe if our schedules were a little bit more flexible, we would probably do that too. For me personally, my understanding of what has led into those types of things where I felt to be a bit excluded before, I've become a bit more aware of maybe why that's happening. The yelling and screaming in the roles I've had, I don't see it a ton. So I think you guys could probably talk to it a bit more. But the last piece too is if you're in a role of leadership, you're leading the project as well. So not only are you providing leadership within your company, you need to provide the leadership to the project and set the tone. I mean, you're in the actual execution stage, Carly, a lot more. So what do you see?
Huge changes to your question over however many years from the yelling and screaming, because that was the norm, or the sunshine girl posters in the trailer. Like
Yeah.
it's happened so slowly that I've forgotten how much progress there has been. It definitely has changed in big ways without even realizing it. Also, a good thing is that it's across the board. So, because I know men in the same level of career as I did, they had a different type of what's the right word? Bullying, and maybe is the right word. So that's improved as well. So
Yeah.
I think the industry as a whole has greatly improved in terms of respecting each other and it being more of a professional industry than it was 20 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
Luckily.
You made the point even about two-parent households. I mean, most construction sites start at 7 a.m. That's when you're expected to be there. I mean, I drop kids off in the morning. I wouldn't be able to make that work. And that just doesn't accommodate people who have to make lunches and drop kids and that kind of thing, right? And so some of that stuff is starting to shift as well, or change, or there's a little more accommodation for it. Yeah.
And small movements. I have an example. There was an executive meeting that used to happen at 7 in the morning from my Ottawa office, and so I have to drop my son off at school. And that same person that switched the meeting without even asking questions why asked me why I felt that there weren't more women in VP roles. And I said, it's hard. You can't make the 7 a.m. executive meetings because you're dropping your kids off. So just that one small calendar change that he did without even flinching, that'll make it a lot easier for women to move into more executive roles. We have to be part of the change as well, whether we realize it or not.
What about on the architecture side? I mean, I know that's where you've come from. Was the culture the same or different as sort of the broader construction industry?
I mean, I think it's different because in architecture, you're dealing with, I hate to say it, but like you're dealing with employees that have gone through a master's program. There's a very professional, very kind of regulated path. So it's definitely different. But that being said, I mean, I do think even there, like to your point about children and families, and I think I saw a lot of obstacles with some of my employees. The other piece too, I always say is that, Carly, you said you forget, right? And you do forget. Sitting here now, I'm in a huge position of privilege. And because I'm a more powerful, competent person from all my experience now, like the things that used to happen to me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, don't happen anymore. I just wouldn't tolerate it. But I have the ability and the power to set boundaries and create, and to create those environments, whereas before I didn't, right?
So is the culture different, or is your place as people who have got power and influence different within the same culture?
It's both, but it
Both.
still has a long ways to go. Like even when I look at, years and years and years ago, I used to work in oil and gas. They've made way huger strides than construction has.
What does it need to look like? What's the low-hanging fruit here that would make it different or better?
For me, just based on personal experience, it's the inclusivity. It's making the golf trips or the 7 a.m. executive meetings available for us. We can't go on a golf weekend because we've got other commitments, and or else why would we want to go on a golf trip with six men, right? So it's making those small changes. Golf tournaments, for example, like, we're all sick of the golf tournaments. Make it more inclusive to people that don't golf or have no interest in it. It's just making those small changes in the industry that will allow us to be part of those executive conversations at the golf course and making the deals on the golf course.
Mhm.
It's those small changes, I think, that need to continue happening.
And I think by using your voice to make that known that those are the changes that need to happen. I worked for an organization that head office was in Toronto, and they would 3 days notice be like, "Oh, we're going to do this director's leadership thing. Can you make it?"
Yeah.
And if I had 3 weeks notice, 100% I could make it work. 3 days notice, it doesn't happen. So you're being left out of that conversation, making sure that leadership or whoever you're dealing with understands why it doesn't work. Don't just hit decline. Make sure it's explained. I had a meeting today with an architect, and I proposed 4 p.m. and she said, "I can't. I'm taking my kid to her first dentist appointment." So she could have just said, "No, it doesn't work." But by oversharing or giving more information, it provides a level of understanding, right? You're not just being snubbed. You're actually, I've got a commitment that I need to make.
Just logistically, you have to call a spade a spade. I think we're going to see a shift just generationally as baby boomers retire and just different perspectives are have a seat at the table. I think men and women, right?
Mhm.
I think that there's going to be kind of a real progress and kind of more evolution.
It's a whole affordability thing
Yeah,
too, right?
right.
1980, you
Stay-at-home
could
wives,
you could
yeah.
run a pretty nice life with
Yeah.
with one income.
Yeah.
That you can't be a ski and baseball parent on one income.
It's definitely
Definitely not
that's
happening.
right.
Yeah. There'll be no ski racing on one income. But that's changed it as well. And I don't know. I don't like to sit here and sound like we're like crushing on men, but it's we're all evolving.
Yep.
The industry's evolving.
Yeah.
The men that we're working with are evolving.
Yeah.
We're evolving, knowing our voice and our power as well.
I think it's a generational thing too, because
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the men in the industry that are my age, and I include myself in this group, and I don't want to go away for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once in a while, but not
Yeah.
all the time. That's not when I
Yeah.
want to do my business
Mm.
development or my networking, right? I want to do it during business hours or maybe until 5 or 5:30 because I want to be home or I
Yeah.
need to get to swim lessons in like an
My
hour.
husband's
right?
exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go on that 5-day trip.
But you feel badly turning it down, or at least that's how I feel about it.
And
Anyway,
we also feel like we're being left out
because you don't
more
even
so
get the
than
invite.
oh, we might get the invite sometimes, but to Leslie's point, within 3 days we can't make it happen. So we know we're missing something.
There's going to be a dinner had
Yeah.
or conversation outside. Even if you call in remote, there'll be a conversation had at dinner or at the coffee maker
You
that
be
you didn't
part
get
of.
to be a part
Yeah.
of.
Obviously, lots of experience, lots of time in the industry here, and lots of knowledge. I wanted to dive in on a couple of issues related to the industry more specifically, because this is good stuff. But I wanted to throw some topics at you and get some takes. So,
Some spice.
some spice. Yeah, bring the spice, bring the hot takes. The low bid world and the way that it's set up, and the fact that every GC takes the lowest price and then submits it to. Is that good for owners? I'm looking at you because you work with owners a lot. Do the owners get the value out of that they're looking for when we go to a low bid, low tender scenario?
There's two things on that. You get what you pay for, but every project has a unique goals, schedule, budget, all of that. having a good understanding of all of that before you make your procurement decision. If you're doing low bid, fixed price, design bid build, then your design documents need to be tight. They can't have the gaps in them. If you've got the confidence in the design package, then the owner with a tight schedule doesn't want a lot of change, is building a warehouse, that probably does work for them. But when you've taken the low bid on your design consultants and then you go and take the low bid on your construction contractor, you're probably going to have some gaps in your design. If you're rushing schedule, you're probably going to have some design that's been missed, and you're going to have some assumptions that have been made by the contractor that will result in a change order. And if the change order isn't justified, then you'll have some animosity, and there'll always be ways that you'll be trying to recover. I think it really depends on what you're building, what's your driver, how much cost certainty do you have or do you need to have? Some clients might be willing to pay the 5% more to get a fixed price contract and know that they're going to have the liquidated damages in it, and you're not done by October 31st for this amount of money and I've changed nothing on the design documents. That might be what they need. So it's not really a yes or no answer, in my opinion.
So is it that there's this menu of options, whether it's low bid or design build or construction management or whatever, and that you need to understand sort of which one to order off the menu depending on the type of project and the type of owner and the type of circumstance?
As an owner's representative, and the contractor can have this conversation as well, but it's really understanding, what is your goal for this project? What do you actually want it to be? Are you comfortable that you're getting a budget that's $10 million, but because you haven't fixed the price, it might end up being $12 million? Or because you have not finished design and you're doing a stage tendering, you won't have cost certainty until the design's fully complete, but you've started construction. So going through with them at the very early stages to make them understand the pluses and minuses of every procurement model. I think a lot of the time construction gets pushed ahead before design's complete. And then the delay from design ends up taken out of the construction schedule. So then right away, the project's set up for failure because the contractor is being awarded less time than was originally anticipated. Pre-planning and understanding exactly what the objectives of the project are before making those decisions is really important.
Allie, you've been on both sides of this.
I would agree. Like, I think you need to understand what is the level of complexity and risk within the project and align that with the contract that best suits it. You know, what is the owner's tolerance for risk, as you say, and also what is the owner's capacity and kind of skill level to engage at a project level? How are they envisioning that they're going to contribute, and what does their experience on the project look like? Like, for some owners, they've got one person fully dedicated, has decision-making power on a project. That's different than someone, you know, a large organization with multiple people within their projects division. And then also what's available in the market. Sometimes we forget about that, right? Seen that recently in Alberta, right? If the market's hot and there's a lot of work out in the market, like from the GC side, you're not going to see a lot of interest in a 10 bidder low bid list, right? It's just not going to happen. So, and it's the same on the consultant side, right? Just a number of different kind of inputs that really impact kind of what delivery model is best.
From the GC side, Carly, is there a particular model that you prefer to work in or that you'll try to avoid? Or is it depend on the project, or like what goes into the factors that make you decide you want to pursue a job?
Different factors as well, because if I'm working at a Clark Builders where we get to be a little bit more choosy and we're not just starting off LAURIN and Calgary, it's a different answer to that question. Back to Leslie's comment about having that conversation early with the clients. We just had a conversation with a potential client this morning about understanding at the beginning, is it money? Is it getting what you want built? What's your driver? What's your most important value? And then we will craft the proper contract around that. And I think perhaps generationally, there's less of an ego of clients these days where they're reaching out to the consultants like Leslie or the GCs like Allie at the beginning stages saying, hey, what contract makes sense here, rather than just thinking that they know. So we're seeing a lot of that shift happening, which is fantastic. We're also seeing good or bad hybrids. So it'll be painted as a CM, but then the supplemental conditions lean towards a fixed price. They're all sort of blending, and there's a new trendy one out, progressive design build. So they're all sort of merging into this a similar type of contract. But to answer your question in a short form, I don't really have a preference. I like a mix, to be honest. I'd get bored of just CM or bored of lump sum. They're all enjoyable as long as it's discussed at the beginning what's important and making sure we all have the same thing we're driving towards.
Are they that distinct? I mean, you said that they all sort of blend and bleed into one another. I mean, how distinct are they really, these delivery methods?
The level of effort to manage them. When we're doing owner's rep PM or doing due diligence for banks, I want to know what the form of contract is, because if it's going to be on the construction financing side, if it's a fixed price contract, I only need to look at one invoice because the owner who I'm watching their contracts only has one contract. If I know that it's a CM, then I need to look at every single trade invoice and bill. From the PM side, if we're reviewing an invoice from a contractor that's a fixed price, we're really just looking at progress. We're not looking at the backup of, well, your mechanical bill was only 12,000, why are you claiming 15 to me? Like, we don't have to see that.
It's just the progress against
It's
the
the
prime.
progress against the fixed price. And unless
Yeah.
there's a change, that fixed price and that progress more or less goes along. That's been my experience, and the difference between management of the two.
They get dicey when the supplementary conditions are homemade, so to speak.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not the standard CCA documents. That's when it gets, and if you aren't familiar with what those SCs are, you can get burnt, so to speak, or that's when the project goes off track, when both sides don't quite understand the contract that they're working around.
Low bid, from the sounds of it, has a time and a place. Is it just as simple as making sure it's only applied where it should be and all the problems with it go away, or is there more to it than that?
There's definitely more to it. A person we met with this morning said something really wise. He said, everyone should be wanting the same outcome. And even down to a meeting that you're having, you go into the meeting knowing what you want as your outcome. And if your client and your design team and the contractor have different outcomes, and if you're looking after yourself, so to speak, then no, it won't go swimmingly with a lump sum. I have a team that's on a lump sum project right now, and it's fantastic. All of the team members are going towards the same goal. So on a lump sum example like that, it's going wonderful. We all trust each other. It's transparent. So it really comes down to the client and the project members, sometimes how well defined the scope is as well.
And pre-qualification. If something just goes out to market and it's
Yeah.
low price, there we would never pursue it, right? So if there's a pre-qual component, it's down to 3 or 5, like maybe, right?
Yeah.
I think you want to make sure, and I think for clients, the pre-qualification process is important just to make sure that you have the right companies bidding the work, right?
What about when things start to go sideways on the job site? It's starting to go over budget. It's starting to go over schedule.
That never happens to us, Jordan.
Never
Not
happened.
us three.
I don't know.
Let's
I
just
don't know.
talk theoretical.
I don't know what projects you've been on. But I've never seen a project over budget.
I'll give you a for instance. There's a job getting billed. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. And the pressure's getting ratcheted up a little bit. If things are over budget, over schedule, there's been scope gaps, maybe,
Yeah.
we won't point fingers or anything. What type of contract or what type of project do you want to be on when those types of things start to materialize?
A project with not very many supplemental conditions, and a project where everybody's read their contract. So when they're putting in change orders, they're putting the appropriate amount of extra time they need. They're putting costs in there. It has to do with understanding the mechanisms that you're entitled to. A word I use around the contract is, what's your entitlement? If your supplemental condition said you need to take accountability for every unknown under the slab, then you probably should have priced that in your number. But if you haven't, and then you're getting all pissed off because, oh shit, now I got to pay for this and I've got this schedule and that, it's like really understanding what you've signed up for.
I just think there's a massive disconnect in terms of the sophistication between the owners and the big GCs who've got resources at their disposal to go through every line of every contract and think through sort of the implications of that, and a painting contractor who's got like 4 people in a truck who's signing and being like, hit DocuSign in my inbox, and I hit yes because the number matched, and then finding out later that you're responsible for X, Y, and Z, right? And the downflow of risk and how that impacts down the line. And I'm curious if there's, from like a holistic perspective, not just the owner's perspective, but from a project perspective, if there's one relationship or one project type that's better than another in terms of keeping everybody sort of safe.
I think in this industry, it's going to be more and more challenging for small companies to exist. We're already seeing consolidation across industry, and we're going to see it even more because, we see it even in the way that like the P3 schools were bundled in Alberta. Well, you have to be if all of the schools now, I mean, they're not, but if they all went out P3, there's only a certain amount of bidders that can bid on that. We have a full legal department, right? And they review everything. And, we make people sign for a $15 million job, a 100-page contract. And there's no way that they're reviewing that. And it's not just the risk piece and the legal piece that's related to contract, just the whole machine and what's expected to pursue work now, and the cost to pursue work, and the level of sophistication you need to pursue work, and the risk and the kind of technology that clients are asking for. And if you don't have a whole technology program and, a whole department really kind of dedicated to understanding, what's best use and why, and all of these things, I think, are going to start to shut out some of the smaller players that we've historically seen, particularly in Calgary. Construction Association, we always talk about 90% of our members are a guy with a truck or a gal with a truck. It's very entrepreneurial, and that's the way that we have existed for a long time. I'm not sure that's going to be possible for the next 50 years.
And if you look at the number one buyer of construction services in the province, the Alberta government, they're packaging these things to be bigger and bigger and bigger and more complex. You used to do one school at a time, one contractor. Now they're doing 16, 30 schools with 3 packages, so 3 contractors, and they all have to be done at the same time. So then that procurement model, you look at some hospitals, it's like, why didn't you just do this as one contract? Greenline was the same through its different iterations. Why could you not procure a couple stations and then a couple bridges and then this and then that? Why did you have to bundle $5 billion together?
And it's not just Alberta, right? Like we see in BC,
it's all over the
like with
world.
BC using a lot of the alliance contract and some of their larger projects. Like you can't navigate that as just any company. It's $1 million just to review the contract and get your team up to speed, to just play.
So from a GC perspective, how are you looking at that when you tender it out to your subs? Because are you concerned with the fact that the 4 people with the truck aren't taking the time to read in detail the contract that they've been handed and the sophisticated level that this job is operating at? And because, that introduces a ton of risk to the person with the truck, but it introduces risk to the GC, it introduces risk to the project. Does that matter? Or if the number looks good, that's the number that goes on the spreadsheet?
I think the latter is how it used to be. Well, it's not our problem; it was your risks. But now there should be no hidden gems for them to, no risk pushed on them without them knowing. So in the buyout meetings, if there's a guy with a truck doing the painting scope on a high school, you just have to have the right questions. You have to ask the right questions about, bonding and manpower, and you have to do your own due diligence so that you're not putting the risk on that person. And you also need to create a safe space where the painter can come and say, "Shoot, I didn't realize that was part of the contract."
You want me to do the whole school?
Just one classroom.
Inside
So-
and out?
Yeah, right.
And the ceilings?
What is that second floor you guys are building?
We all laugh because we've been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you have to set your trade partners up for success. You can't just giggle, they missed half the building. That's, to your point, that's a reflection on you at the end of the day. That's your problems to deal with.
So you see that as part of your responsibility, regardless of the contractual setup of the project?
If they fail,
If they fail,
you're failing.
That's right. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be pulling the wool over their eyes, is my point in that story. It's like, if you know they're missing the second floor, tell them.
Yeah.
Right? So
But if you're in a fixed lump sum and you've got to increase their cost, that's coming out of your budget as the GC, aren't you?
yeah, it's a give and take for sure. That comes down to doing your due diligence during the tender time as well, though. How did you not know that guy didn't have the second floor? So
Right.
it's easy to point the finger and say, well, they're reviewing it in the truck, but it's also up to the more sophisticated contractors to help them along and to educate them. If you want them to be part of your team, you want them to succeed. So there's some hand holding, and you just have to be prepared for that, especially on public tenders.
You agree?
Yeah, no, I would agree. If our trade partners fail, then we fail. There's a lot of hand-holding, and there's a lot of, sometimes going above and beyond to try to support them and help them. And
We all want to win,
Yeah.
or we should all want to win.
How do you build that team where there's sort of mutual accountability on a job site like that?
A lot of trust. That's an easy cop-out answer, but and a lot of give and take. If you need to help them with their hoarding, they'll help you with using their Bobcat the next day. Again, it goes back to going after the same goal and not protecting your own
Bottom line.
outcomes. There's a lot of give and take, a lot more than any of us will ever see on site, I imagine. So there's that trust, and if you help me out, I'm going to help you out. So it's really forming a culture of, let's all succeed together, and let's all help each other regardless of what trade partner you are or not.
That's sort of the opposite of the read your contract, it's in there, go do it now. I've been
Yep.
told that.
Yeah, I think I was told that this morning. So.
It's not just the financial piece. If they've missed a whole floor, you're probably going to push that to them to cover on their own, but they could crap out on schedule,
yeah, exactly.
and they could go bust and say, I'm out of here. I've done the first floor, don't pay me, but you got to find somebody else to finish it. So more than just cost as a driver on projects. And I think with the amount of work there is, people will be choosy and they won't bid certain work.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think the subs will do the same. Like they're not going to work for a GC that they know screws them over every time.
We've spent lots of time talking about the current state of things, contracts, the bidding. What's fixable here? What can the future look like if we put our heads to it? I mean, you mentioned that maybe it's bigger companies that are partaking in it, but I think construction by nature is entrepreneurial, right? I mean, somebody's going to get their ticket to be a trade and then they're going to say, hey, I can do this better than the person I'm working for. So you're probably always going to have that churn, but how do we improve things? What can it look like in the future?
I mean, honestly, more vertical integration. That's what they have in the States, right? We have right now on the design side, there, are laws and regulations that prevent that. But for certain project types, especially like highly specialized work, data centers, for example, we're talking about data centers nonstop at work. That's something totally specialized. You should have a vertically integrated company, one team that just goes and delivers all the data centers. In terms of execution and getting, a faster, cheaper, better quality product, we need to work towards that, whether it's contractually or at the company level.
And that would be design, GC, and some key trades,
Yeah.
all integrated into a single entity.
Yeah, into a single entity. Yeah, and so I think we're going to see consolidation. I think we're going to see some vertical integration, and then also I think we're totally underestimating how big of a disruptor some of the emerging technologies are, and it's not just like the chat GBTs of the world. I think this data-rich environment and the way that we're going to be able to utilize data, especially on the design side, there's going to be a ton of disruption because it's not every building is unique, yes, but to a certain extent, I think that there's going to be ability to leverage technology to solve that way faster.
I think definitely the collaboration, having the early conversations about what the desired outcome is from the leaders of all the project participants. I think having a really good understanding of the schedule, understanding that you get what you pay for, bottom dollar doesn't always win. And I think that schedule piece I'm really seeing as a low hanging fruit and is helping projects progress through the design stage on schedule and not take it off the back end of construction. Yeah, it's usually the painter, the millwork guy, the guys that come in at the end, flooring probably.
Yeah.
Let's cut down on the supplemental conditions. Like let's just don't add a supplemental condition to completely contradict and turn a CCDC 5B into really a fixed price. Like find ways to make it more collaborative and fair.
But I also think on the financial side, we're going to see some different kinds of solutions. I know we've already seen like the P3 model and, there's others. But when I look at the BC government and they canceled all the long-term care as an example that they needed, even if you're broke as a province, you can't continue like that forever without building necessary infrastructure. So I also think financially, I think companies are going to come and say, okay, well, you don't have the money right now, but I'll lend it to you and I'll build it for you. And, here it is,
with
right?
a solution.
Yeah, with a solution, there's going to be some really kind of more creative thinking, I think, happening with that.
They're going to reopen up that unsolicited proposals for infrastructure stuff that they did a few years ago.
And big stuff, bridges, hospitals.
That's interesting. Yeah, like private money coming
in saying, okay,
the data centers are getting funded.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're going to see more of that in public infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And the difference between that and a P3 is that the province doesn't have the solution. The solution's coming to them.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
You need this bridge. Here's the money we're going to build
you need
it for
this.
you.
Yeah.
We're just going to charge
we
you.
know you need this hospital.
Good segue actually is change doesn't happen when things are going great and the industry's going great. And we've been fortunate enough in our time in our career where it has been really great, especially in Alberta. We wouldn't be doing a construction podcast without talking about the labor shortage that we're all seeing for the last however many years. It's been the same conversation since the 80s, but that's when change happens. So, design of buildings is going to look different. It's going to look different in terms of building systems needing less labor. GCs need to get smarter. We just have to have more creative solutions and approaches to challenges than we have in the traditional past.
Does our industry have an appetite to implement things like AI and robotics and some of the massive shift that's coming, or are we going to sort of lag behind the mean on that?
I think the appetite from at a very local level is probably lagging only because of capacity to actually sit down and do it and look at it and learn it and understand it. And I think the labor shortage is definitely going to drive change in how we deliver things. And it's not just physical labor in the field, it's across the whole entire market of designers, project managers, estimators, quantity surveyors.
That's when the change happens, when you're forced to do it.
Yeah, when you need to come up with a creative solution to get it done.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. When it comes to some of those creation of AI, I think is a good one. Like, it doesn't, you need to be actually solving a problem, right? I think we need to start thinking about what is the problem that can be solved, where are the efficiencies that can be gained, where can we generate, improved value, and then backtrack from that. As opposed to on the financial side, you have to have the capacity to be able to hire these crazy big, IT teams with, AI working groups. But I think even we just get kind of down rabbit holes. Like, what are we really trying to solve? Like, where really are the gaps? One of the things that we struggle with really understanding, there's just so many.
much.
Do you have FOMO? Like, hey, the big GC across the road is probably like just a bunch of robots over there, not real people. Like, we got to catch up.
We gotta catch up.
Yeah, are you concerned about that?
Me personally, I'm not concerned. I think the one skill that people have to learn is you have to become an AI super user.
Yeah.
Like, I can do 5 times the work that most people can and it's not because I'm just saying, write me this or do this. It's like, it's an integrated thing.
Going back to the conversation we had about young people, and thinking about their careers, I mean, that's going to be sort of table stakes, is understanding, and that'll be within construction.
And I think that's the key piece is it's table stakes. You have to also understand what you're doing.
Yes.
You also have to understand construction. Being an AI super user is not playing video games.
No.
Like, I feel I've seen that with scheduling. It's just been like, well, I know how to use P6, so I'm just going to be your scheduler. But they have no concept of what the sequence
What
of
the
events
schedule's for,
are, the
yeah.
time frames, what it's for.
Well, and construction's always going to be in some ways unique in that it exists in real life. And so it's a building that needs to be built in real life, and you're going to have to execute it
Physically see that concrete
physically.
be poured into
That's
a
right.
piece of
And you
formwork.
have to put the roof on after the walls go up. I mean, AI can probably tell you that much, but understanding how to leverage the AI and still be able to function within the physical world is going to be.
Yeah.
And in some ways, in terms of integrating people and keeping them busy, construction has that as a benefit, right? Because
sure.
it's going to last that much longer.
But I think we also need to move towards a deliverable-based rather than a time-based system. So, and I don't know how that's going to look, but for architecture, for example, if it used to take a junior person 2 days to do a render and now it takes 1 hour, and that used to be $2,000, do I still charge $2,000? Or when we move to Revit, right, are they now going to expect 10 renders instead of the 1? What is it, right? And if we have a lot of young people who can do more than some of the more senior individuals, then how do we also move? Are we still working? Like that should be the
This
big
is
promise.
not
Are we
good.
still working 50, 60 hours a week, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, presumably that market finds an efficient point, right?
of course, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right.
You're not charging 1 hour.
Yeah.
It's your intelligence that you're selling. That's
Exactly.
I could go down a rabbit hole with that because that's how I feel about.
No, I agree with you.
You're
But,
right.
but like the clients are like, why can't it
Well,
be
you
cheaper?
did it in an hour.
Yeah, why isn't it cheaper now? It's like, well, no.
It's your intelligence. It's the infrastructure you have to pay for.
Yeah.
You're not just paying for the person's time. You're paying for the fact that
Yeah.
you've got $12,000 in subscriptions to be able to do that.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's the value that you've created,
Yeah.
right? You've
Yeah.
designed this for this person who wants to build this
Yeah.
building. There's value to it,
Yeah.
or at least there
Yeah.
should be value
Yeah.
to that, right?
But now there's authorship because I can just say, make me a building like Zaha Hadid.
Yeah.
It will.
It will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's going to be almost a copyright element that needs to be included in that. Yeah. It's interesting times. Allie, Leslie, Carly, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time and your insight. And thank you.
It's a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks for having us.
And that wraps up another episode of the Universal Flooring Podcast. A huge thank you to Allie, Leslie, and Carly for being so candid about their journeys. It's clear that whether we're talking about AI, vertical integration, or simply making sure that a 7 a.m. meeting doesn't impact the parents on your team, the future of construction in Calgary is in very capable hands. If you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe and join the conversation on social media. We want to hear about your accidental start in the trades. I'm Jordan, and we'll see you on the next job site.